Welcome back, builders. Let's jump right into this explainer brought to you by Forge College. If you were with us last time, we wrapped up a really great session on performance-driven deployment choices. Basically, how to get your smart contracts running hyper-efficiently on-chain. But today, we're shifting gears. We're moving from pure efficiency to unadulterated ironclad security. Think of it like this. We're transitioning from building the walls of our digital bank to engineering a heavily fortified exit door. Today's explainer is all about designing secure withdrawal flows. We're going to break down the exact mechanisms you need to protect your users' funds while still giving them that buttery smooth experience they expect. Because let's face it, an impenetrable vault is completely useless if the actual owner can't get their money out, right? Think of this agenda as our engineering schematic. We're going to cover the withdrawal danger zone, core vault security patterns, controlling the blast radius, building the secure wallet, and finally, testing against smart attacks. Let's get to work. Section 1. The Withdrawal Danger Zone. This is where user intent, external calls, and contract state all violently collide in a high-stakes heist scenario. Moving funds into or out of a wallet is the primary intersection where most exploitable failures pop up. And honestly, it makes perfect sense when you really think about it. This is the exact moment your contract's internal state, its accounting ledger, is forced to interact with the wildly unpredictable outside world. Hackers and digital bank robbers, they absolutely know this. They aren't usually trying to break your math. They're trying to manipulate the sequence of events right at this exit door. They want to force immediate transfers, drain balances using stolen keys, or trick the contract into paying out twice before the ledger even has a chance to update. This intersection is basically their favorite target, which means it needs to be our most heavily fortified checkpoint. Section 2. Core Vault Security Patterns. Let's take a look at how we can draft concrete defensive features on our blueprint to stop these attackers dead in their tracks. First up is the pull pattern. So instead of the contract automatically sending funds out, which we call a push pattern, we actually require the user to initiate the transaction to withdraw their funds. Essentially, it's making users come up to the teller window to claim their cash, rather than the bank trying to deliver it to their front door. Why does this matter? Well, actively pushing funds out means making external calls to unknown addresses, which can trigger completely unexpected control flows or malicious fallback functions. By making the user pull their funds, we completely sidestep that chaos. The user asks for their money, the contract checks the ledger, and hands it over. Clean, simple, and insanely secure. Next up, we have one of my absolute favorite defensive maneuvers, optimistic zeroing. The crux of this is that we hilariously thwart hackers by emptying their account ledger before they can even attempt a double-dip reentrancy attack. Imagine an attacker tries to withdraw their funds, and during the transfer, they trigger a malicious loop to ask for the funds again before the first transaction even finishes. If we use optimistic zeroing, the very first thing we do before sending a single drop of ETH is aggressively update their internal credit balance to 0. So if their malicious code loops back around and asks for money a second time, the contract checks the ledger, sees a big fat 0, and rejects the request outright. It's a remarkably simple accounting trick that literally neutralizes one of the most notorious smart contract exploits out there. These core mitigations act like heavy-duty locks on our vault door. We've got the pull pattern to avoid immediate external calls. We've got optimistic zeroing to prevent reading stale balances, and finally, we bolt on a reentrancy guard. This is a modifier you attach to your function that acts like a physical padlock, simply blocking any nested entry into your sensitive functions. Even if a future developer accidentally introduces a flaw in the code somewhere down the line, the reentrancy guard is your ultimate failsafe. It is literally the equivalent of dropping a heavy steel bar across the door. Section 3. Controlling the blast radius. Because what if a key actually gets stolen? What if an attacker has the rightful owner's credentials? We need to engineer some backup systems. As you advance through the broader learning modules in the Applied Solidity development track, you quickly realize that scoping these constraints is vital. You have to balance ironclad security with a totally smooth user experience. We do this through blast radius controls. First, we implement a rate limit, capping the daily withdrawals per address. So if a key is compromised, the attacker can only siphon off a limited amount per day, rather than draining the whole contract instantly. Second, we set a time lock threshold. This means any withdrawal over a certain massive amount requires a mandatory waiting period. And third, for highly sensitive operations, we require multi-signature owner confirmation. These controls ensure that a single point of failure absolutely doesn't result in a total catastrophe. Let's actually see this time lock in action on our timeline. At T0, someone requests a massive withdrawal. Instead of just firing off the money, The contract just emits a large withdrawal queued event. Then we enter the waiting period, the time lock duration. This buys the legitimate vault owner precious time to get an alert, look at the queue, say, whoa, wait a minute, I definitely didn't authorize that, and intervene to stop the heist. Only after the time lock fully expires at T-unlock is the withdrawn event actually emitted and the funds transferred. It's basically a brilliant built-in panic button. Section 4. Building the secure wallet. Now, let's look at the actual construction of our contract, using a local Hardhat network for isolated, reproducible testing. We want to simulate everything safely off-chain. When we write the actual Solidity code for our withdrawal function, we strictly follow this flow. This right here is the holy trinity of defensive ordering: checks, effects, and interactions. First, checks. We verify that the user actually has funds. We check the rate limits, and we verify those time locks. Second, effects. We update the contract's internal state, applying our optimistic zeroing so the ledger reflects the withdrawal before the money ever moves. Third, interactions. Only after all checks pass and the internal ledger is fully updated do we finally execute the external transfer. Sticking to this exact sequence makes your contract incredibly resilient, even if someone bolts on a bunch of complex new code paths to the wallet way later on. Section 5. Testing against smart attacks. It's time to run our Hardhat simulation and unleash some imaginary attackers against our newly built vault to see if our blueprints hold up under fire. Let's contrast a normal, patient user claiming their funds against a frantic attacker. Our normal user asks for a large sum, the system politely queues the time lock, waits the required duration, and then gracefully pays out. Safe, predictable, perfect functional. But then you have the attacker making a rapid drain attempt. They try to maliciously spam the claim function, and honestly, they get comically rejected immediately. The transaction reverts because our optimistic zeroing already wiped their ledger, and our non-reentrant guard slammed the door shut. The attacker basically spends gas just to get a no funds error slapped right in their face. But hey, as engineers, we don't just trust, we verify. When you run your local tests, this is your crucial verification checkpoint. You absolutely must see the large withdrawal queued event fire perfectly for large claims. You need to ensure the balance deltas match exactly down to the way. You've got to verify that repeated immediate claims revert with that exact no funds error message. And you must see aggregated microdrains hit an absolute brick wall when they reach the daily limit. If you aren't seeing these exact artifacts in your test output, your vault has a loose hinge. Stop what you're doing, go straight back to the blueprint, and debug those state updates. So ask yourself this ultimate engineering question as you finalize your code. Are your on-chain invariants protected while maintaining off-chain UX expectations? It is a super delicate balancing act. You have to ensure you haven't built a vault so secure that even the rightful owners can't get their money out in a timely manner. The security constraints absolutely have to align with how the user intends to use the wallet day to day. A 5-day time lock on a $5 transaction? That's terrible UX. But a 5-minute time lock on $1 million transfer? That's terrible security. You have to calibrate it perfectly. Once your demo is totally airtight and you've dialed in that perfect balance, we'll move to the next lesson in the module where things get truly chaotic. In debugging and mitigation exercises, we are going to craft automated exploit scripts and run highly targeted fuzz tests to stress test the absolute outermost edge cases of these patterns. Basically, we're going to try our hardest to break what we just built. And that wraps up our explainer on designing secure withdrawal flows. To continue mastering Web3 engineering and to explore more amazing topics in the Applied Solidity development track, I highly encourage you to visit forge.college. There are some incredible courses and an amazing community waiting for you there. Because remember, the only thing better than a perfectly secure vault is knowing exactly how to build one from scratch. Keep building, keep learning, and I will see you in the next explainer.